we'll combine some proverbs for the weekend sessions, but that way we'll cover all of it. But over the course of this next month, January, in this new year, we'll be looking at a different proverb each day. So today, our third day of January, we're going to be looking at Proverbs chapter 3. Now, Proverbs 3 has, I don't know if these are the most, Proverbs 31 probably is the most famous passage in the book of Proverbs, but Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 are some of the more well-known verses in all the Bible. And I would say maybe the most well-known passages in the book of Proverbs themselves. So as we said the last few days, we're not going to read all of this chapter because this chapter has 35 verses. So I would encourage you to click on the link that has this chapter. We can read it online, or if you're following in your own Bible, I would read all of Proverbs 3. But I want to just focus on a few key passages this morning. But especially, I want to focus on 3 verses 5 and 6. When I was at Colin a million years ago, back when the Earth's core was still cooling, we had a little drama group that would go out and perform Christian skits in different churches. This is the 90s when, back when there's still a lot of youth choirs and a lot of church drama teams. We did this, and we would go all over Southwest Mississippi. And our group was called The Mission. And our group had, on the back of our T-shirts, had these 2 passages printed on the back. And that's really one of the first times I really ever heard this passage. But it's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and do not rely upon your own insight. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. I grew up reading the New International, the NIV, where I think it says something to the effect of, because this is how I remember this passage: trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and do not lean in your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. I think that's so important for us to think about, not relying upon our own insight or our own understanding. I think it's later in Proverbs it says something to the effect of the way of a man, his path seems straight, but it's misguided. I think this passage tells us 2 key things. First is to understand the brokenness of our own understanding or our own insight. It's so common for us to think that we know everything. So common for us to think that we have everything that we understand all things, that we've got it all figured out. It's so common. It's so normal for us as humans to think that we know everything. And that's a fool's errand, to think that we understand and we know everything. If we rely upon our own understanding and our own wisdom and our own strength, we will get it wrong. And that's why I think this verse is so key, because it tells us to trust in the Lord with all of our heart, to trust in his way, in his understanding. And I think about that a lot, how I'm so much more faithful. I'm so much more at peace. I have so much more understanding when I'm truly immersed in God's word, or when I'm truly reading or praying, or really trusting in God with my own heart. But our temptation all the time is to trust in our way, and that we have it all figured out, particularly if you're an overthinker. Some of y'all are blessed out there not to be overthinkers. And if you're not an overthinker, man, oh man, you have been blessed by God, because faith tends to come a bit easier for you. I'm an overthinker. I said this before. Me and Holly are wired completely different. She just trusts and has faith in a way that I struggle with. And so she doesn't overthink everything. She just tends to trust in God a lot easier than I do. Whereas I want to think about everything and work through everything, come up with contingencies and thoughts and plans and ideas and schemes and dreams and all these type of things. And sometimes I can get too smart for my own good. Sometimes I can spend more time asking God to bless my plans, then instead of seeking his will, to do his plans. So trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. See, when we trust in God, what we find is that when our hearts are in tune with him, and when our hearts are following him, and when we submitted ourselves to his will and his way, what we find is that our paths are suddenly more straight. Whenever I'm in charge, my paths seem awful crooked. Whenever I'm planning things or trying to figure it all out, it seems like everything gets real confused all of a sudden. But whenever I submit myself to God and trust in him and lean not upon my understanding, but lean upon his understanding and upon his way, then I find that my paths are a lot more straight. Imagine if the time and energy we spent worrying, or the time and energy we spent trying to figure it all out. Imagine if instead of spending that time and energy on that, we just submitted ourselves to God. We used our time and energy to submit ourselves to God. Imagine how much straighter our paths would be. Today, if you're struggling with some decision, some choice, something, you're struggling with that. Are you trying to figure it out on your own? Are you trying to do it by your own way, or your own might, or your own plan? Or have you submitted yourself to God? Have you acknowledged him? Have you followed him? And he will make your path straight. It's not about being smarter. It's not about working harder. It's not about having all the wisdom. It's about humbling ourselves and submitting ourselves to God. Man, imagine if we did that. Imagine if we got out of the way. Imagine if we got out of our own way and simply humbled ourselves and submitted ourselves to God. What he would do. What he would do. Verse 7, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. And verse 8, it will be a healing for your flesh and a refreshment from your body. How often has our planning and dreaming and scheming left us exhausted? So tired we can't stand it. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Don't think you've got it all figured out. Humble yourself, submit yourself to him. He will make your path straight, and even in that you will find refreshment and healing. Honor the Lord with your substance, and he will fill your barns. Your vats will be bursting. Verse 11, don't despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of reproof. For the Lord reproves the one he loves and the son in whom he delights. When we humble ourselves and submit ourselves to him, sometimes he'll correct us. Sometimes he'll point out where we're doing it wrong. But in the same way, we as parents want our children to do right, and we teach and love and even discipline them, God does that to us as well. I think here's the thing, y'all. It's what we got to realize. We got to realize God is not out to get us. God's plans are not bad. God's plans are life-giving. God's not out to crush us or destroy us or even condemn us. John 3:17. God's out to give us life. And when we acknowledge him, when we lean upon his understanding, when we are not wise in our own eyes, but live with his grace and mercy and plan, our paths are straighter, our life makes more sense, and there's a healing for our flesh and refreshment for our body. It's a good goal for this year, y'all. Let's don't spend our time trying to get God to bless our plans. Let's spend our time acknowledging him, acknowledging his way, and he'll straighten our paths. He'll lead us where he needs to be. And we'll be exactly where that is. So in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. So let's acknowledge God today. Let's submit ourselves to God. Let's lean not upon our understanding. And when we do that, y'all, I promise you we'll find life. So thanks for joining us today. We're going to pick up tomorrow with chapter 4.